Hello and welcome to a new video, and today we're going to be talking about, is it cheaper to rent or should I buy or should I rent? And we have got an article up here. It's found, this was published in 2020, written by Dan Bass, financial content writer, so shout out to him. I just dropped my phone. But this is going to be the first video. It's going out in the new YouTube studio. Just making sure my rabbit doesn't go in and not all the cables. But yeah, so basically my backstory is I've owned two houses. This is my second house. I've never rented. My partner has. She was a renter all her life until now. She owns half this house. I own half this house. So I've come from a total one-sided view here, but I can see the advantages of, like, before we go through this, I'll tell you my kind of advantages for buying a house and why I think renting is a good idea as well. So obviously buying first. You've got a, you buy a house, it's yours. No one's going to come around and say, I want you at this house. Well, except from maybe the bank if you don't pay your mortgage, maybe. And maybe any bills that build up, and I don't know. Maybe I think they're the only reason. Or you run out of money and then you have to sell the house. But yeah, that is one of the probably the only things I can think of where someone would come and tell you to get out of the house, or you get arrested. But hey, the downside, there's a downside, but obviously the renting is, obviously some people can only afford to rent. That is fair on them, and that's how they choose to live their life. I stayed with my mum a lot longer than maybe a lot of people did, but that's here and there. And I managed to get a house, and hey ho. But that's not all. Maybe that's not all. Maybe people have big families and their families want them to move out. I'm rambling here. So renting, one of the advantages of renting, well, this is probably going to come up in this anyway. If something does go wrong with the house, say the central heating, say the central heating, the boiler, maybe there's a leak or something like that. You don't need to pay for that. I don't think you need to pay for it. I think you contact the landlord and it goes up and they say, hey, my boiler's broken, I need it replaced. There you go. That comes out the landlord's fee, or the landlord's money he's making. So if you buy a brand new house, rent it out, and then your tenant say, oh, my boiler's broken, you need to fix it. So it's going to come out that's maybe a downside for being a person who rents houses to other people. You need to make sure you can afford to replace it. I mean, like right now I'm having a few issues with my flat roof, and it's not all flat, but where the garage is, there was water there, so I've got someone out. Got someone to fix it, but that had to come out of my own money, where I could have contacted my landlord and he would have sorted it, or he or she should have sorted it, so I would say. That's kind of one advantage for renting versus one advantage for buying, and then obviously the negative and advantage of both. They contradict each other, or the good with the bad, say. So let's go in for the first point here. Should I buy or should I rent? So it's saying here, buying a house, blah blah blah, 20 to 25 years to buy, which is normally 25. Which is normally between 20 to 25 years to buy a house. You will need 6 months worth of expenses, but I believe this is where this kind of counteracts in with point 3 here. You need a 10% deposit. So basically saying you need 6 months worth of expenses, including bills, mortgage payments, set aside, and savings account. That if it's saying that fact alone, that's a lie, and that's just not true. But if it's saying you should be practicing and saving these things in case something does go wrong, and you have also a 10% deposit, maybe I don't know, but it's not a condition where you need 6 months worth of expenses, including bills, mortgages, payments, blah blah blah, set aside. That is, both my houses didn't require that. It just required a big fat 10% or above deposit. I think I paid like 18% on both of them, or maybe slightly more in the next one. A good credit rating, yeah, that is essential. Banks will turn you down if you. I mean, that isn't vital, you know, like when you're younger. You know, oh, I'll go out. Oh, it's all right. I went into my emergency overdraft, or I don't know. I don't think overdraft. As long as you pay your overdraft back. I've never had an overdraft either. As long as you pay your overdraft back, I think it doesn't affect you. But if you were someone who continually goes into their overdraft and is constantly in it, I think getting a mortgage may be more difficult for you. But also like phone contracts and stuff like that. But what I would recommend is getting a credit card, pay it back every month. You know, you're not still having money on it. Next thing, just pay one thing on it, buy fuel or something, and just pay it off, and that builds your credit card history. And then get a contract phone and pay that. Make sure you pay that back every month, and it all build up and give you a good credit card savings account. Sorry about that. My phone I dropped on the phone earlier is going off. And to be able to commit to a monthly mortgage without any large debts outstanding. So if you're already paying rent, you're paying, I believe it's saying down here, £700 a month. So that is a fairly substantial amount. So if you're paying that in rent, you can afford to pay a monthly mortgage. And to counteract that, my first mortgage, I think it first came out as £500 a month, and then I'm for the second or third year there, it went down to £350 a month. So you can already kind of do the calculation. Over half, you know, that's over half that. That's £700 a month. So we can go down here. Is it cheaper to buy a house or that? So it's saying renting is £700 a month, and the average mortgage was £750 a month. I've never paid £750 for a mortgage in my Nelly. So basically, I think we're paying £505 now for this 3-bed house, and as I said before, my last house went down to £350. That's not including electricity and stuff like that, and I think you still need to pay electricity and everything on that in another house as well, or rented house as well. So maybe like council tax and stuff like that, unless you get a really good landlord who just includes that in all. And yeah, but buying a house does incur other costs. If you're buying first time, you just need to do your buying fees and your solicitor fees. I think that's about it. And then any other kind of tests that you want to have done to the house, maybe like for example, the people who bought my house surprised me, and they requested a coal mining certificate to make sure there's no sinkholes in the area, and surprise, there's not, because this place used to be all farmland. But that can happen as well. If you're selling, you got seller's fees, and then you got all your buying fees and stuff like that, and your solicitors and all these other kind of fees. It would cost like three or 4 grand. So you're talking peanuts in terms of buying houses. So yeah, talking about peanuts here. So we get on to how much can I borrow on a mortgage. I believe that's like your salary like 3 times. At least that's the kind of calculation I use. But then my mortgage person was like, yeah, here you go. Let's just say it's just me. Let's do this quick test. What's your annual income? Then we're gonna give my annual income, but let's go for like someone on minimum wage, right? What's minimum wage? Maybe 15,000. I don't know if that's minimum wage. additional income. Maybe you do a couple of deliveries. £230. How much do you total credit and savings and loans? Let's say you're good. You have 0. How many children under 18 do you have? Let's say you're good. I'm not saying that. That's no. Yeah, you know, you can have one kid, one to 5 kids. You know, people who have kids at different times, and this is the problem. So we get 5,600, £75,000. See, with the average home, as it says, costing £275,000, this is where things can go ridiculously wrong for people. So let's see if you have one kid. It goes 75,000 plus 700. It does not discriminate. Let's say 5+. It's still the same. So it's an irrelevant question. If you're someone who has maybe average wage but nothing, so you have £100 is, you see you've got £10,000 as a deposit, and that would get you a nice somewhat house. So we'll bring this into view, and let's just say max price. What did we say? It was 100. Let's say 125k. So you can get top floor flat here, £65,000. West Pilton. You might want to have your boxing gloves on, but £125,000 just within budget. Upper flat, I have no idea if that's the same as a top floor flat. Double up flat, 105. So these are all to buy, and he can buy this one and still have £5,000 left over to do it up. It's decent. Well, for a flat, it's decent. I've lived in a flat once, and that was with my ex. So I kind of paid her rent. Not too bad, I guess. A few looks of paint, I guess, and some furniture would do that up really nicely. We're kind of digressing from the conversation here, but that's what you can probably get. Maybe more flats and houses. For instance, my first house bought me. It cost me £127,995. I'll never forget that number because they rejected my initial offer of £125,000. And yet again, I upped it to £127,995 and said this is my final offer. It was only up on the SBC that day. It sold on the first day because I just saw it once and bought it, which I don't know if it's in hindsight now that maybe I should have. No, I loved that house. Honestly, I did. It was a good few problems wrong with it. There's a good few problems wrong with this house, but you know, we move. So we just kind of worked out how much we can borrow, and we found out the having kids is non-discriminatory. But obviously you would have to afford to feed them and stuff like that, because I don't think you would survive in the same house if you didn't pay your mortgage or you didn't feed your kids. So now next you see the based current on your interest rates, blah blah blah. Interest rates are ridiculously low just now, so people can get mortgages really cheap, but you need to be aware that things can change and it can go all the way up to 10% higher than it already is. And it does say on your letter that if interest rates were to rise this much, and it goes back 10 years or something like that, and my £505 turns into £1,200 just for the mortgage alone, can you still afford to pay it? Yeah. It'd be a lot more stressful, like, but yeah, we can. So what's the advantages of buying home? So my advantages are well, it's yours. No one can, except for the bank, can ask you to leave. You can do whatever you want with it. Disadvantage is if anything goes wrong, buck stops are you. And you know, you have to replace it. You need to fix these leaks. You need to fix these boilers yourself. You can't just rely on oh landlord, can I know I've bothered you for the 15th time, but my boiler's broke. And he could be like,
Yeah, sorry Paul, I'm a bit busy. I'll get right to it when I can get there.
I don't know if they can legally do that. And this I kind of also go into conversation with flats as well. Why you should buy a house and not a flat, because if something goes wrong with this house, it's just me that's paying for it. Where if I was living in a flat and there was a leaky roof, we don't have to pay for this. So let's go through their what the advantage of buying a home. It can be cheaper to own, but there are other advantages of it can be cheaper to own, but there are other advantages to owning your own home. That makes no sense. I think it's supposed to say it can be cheaper to rent, but there are advantages of owning your own home. Let's go with that. Your monthly repayments will go towards buying your home and not into some landlord's pocket. That's true. You fully own your home at the end of your mortgage. True as well. You can make a profit if your house price rises. Yes, I did. You don't need anyone's permission to have pets or redecorate. Yep, true. And that can really piss some people off if you love pets. I mean, 1 second. This is my rabbit Jack. Don't need anyone's permission to own him. They are free roam bunny, so oh, hair everywhere. He's a very hairy rabbit. But yeah, I bought him. As long as you can fit them in your house, you can own as many pets as you want. I think. I'm not sure if that's illegal to have more than so many pets. Actually, here, I'll do a quick Google for you. So I believe it's just saying assess your own circumstances, but on your size of home. But I don't think there's actually any legal limit to how many pets that you can own. Okay, so right, we're digressing again. Any maintenance changes you make to your house could increase the value. Yes, it could also probably decrease the value as well if it doesn't look good or if it's a shabby job. Yes. I definitely won that for my first house due to that, because half the house wasn't really done, and I didn't notice the other half that I didn't notice was kind of not finished. Like the bathroom was half grouted, and that caused a lot of it caused a leak and stuff like that. You can't be forced to move by a landlord, yes, but the bank can. So this is the disadvantages. If you get a joint mortgage, which I have now, and separate, it can be complicated to sell the property. Interest rates rise can increase your monthly payments. This is going back to what I said. Right now I'm paying 505, but if it goes back to 10 years ago, it could rise to £1,200 a month. I am on a fixed rate. I'm not on a. I'm on a fixed rate, and I'm not on an interest-only mortgage because, again, you're only paying back the interest, and then you still have this big bill at the end of what is your house to pay for. I don't know if they still do them actually. You have to pay for repairs, including that. Yeah, I've mentioned this. Goes around the heat. Yeah. Moving can take a long time because you have to sell your home first. Yes. That there is true. I put my it only took me 4 weeks to sell my house, but plus a 2 weeks break, so about 6 weeks in total because I had 2 weeks Christmas where everyone just like stops. But I had a lot of people. I had about 14 15 people come round, couples as well, and yeah, I got quite a lot of the comments where it's a lovely home, it's just not for me. And eventually a first time buyer came round and he bought it with his missus, and yeah, they saw it once and bought it like me, so go on them. If your finances become tighter, moving to a cheaper property can take some time. Yeah, and where not that it's going to be rented property, you just don't know. There are financial consequences for falling behind on your payments. Yes, but that is same with any financial commitments that you make and break. If you fall too behind on your mortgage, you could face bankruptcy, or your home could be repossessed. It's kind of the same point, to be honest. But okay, we're moving on to why should I rent? There's still advantages of renting if you have to move around for work, then yes, and that is what Grant Cardone says, because he's a salesperson, and yeah, he does rent. He rents all his houses. He rents these £1 million houses and stuff like that, where I'm just staying in Edinburgh, and I go to my one place of work, or multiple places of work just now because I'm a student and I'm moving around the places. I'm an employed student. I'm employed to be a student. It's a really weird situation. Renting may also be a good idea because finding a renting home is usually quicker than the process of buying. Probably true, because if you're buying, you really want to take your time and don't do me and just buy the first house that you see because it's a house and not a flat. But it was within my budget and I done it. No regrets. You will not lose money if the property price goes down. True, the landlord would. You would not need to pay for repairs and renovators. Yes, that is a big advantage of being a renter. And don't get me wrong, owning a house is great and all, but when things go wrong and you don't have money, you know, you're looking at insurance and your insurance prices go up and stuff like that. I've not had to do that, fortunately enough, but you know, that is one thing. It's often cheaper to rental payments rarely change, making it easier to budget. Yes, in a way, but there has been news going around of landlords just randomly increasing their profit because it's their business. They can do what they want. But it could make it easy to budget, and then you can use that budget to save up for a house. You may be able to rent a bigger home in a nicer area than you can afford to buy. Yeah, and that's true. In these flats I showed you earlier, they weren't in exactly the best of areas. No offense to people who live in Pilton or anywhere like that. It's dodgy. I mean, to be perfectly honest, Edinburgh now is just turning into it's got nice areas and dodgy areas, but it's more or less mingling now. What are the disadvantages of renting? So you're paying someone else's mortgage basically. If you never buy a house, you have to pay rent for your whole life, even after you retire. Yes. So that's probably the biggest problem. You know, if you retire, you're looking at owning your house by the time you retire, and yeah, that's the. It's going to be an issue, you know. If you imagine you're a pensioner and you still have to pay rent, that'd be disastrous. But obviously people do, and I don't know how they survive. But if your landlords decide to sell or get new tenants, you have to move out. Yep. But then you see all these people on can't pay, take away. Oh, we refuse to move. We refuse to move. But I have no idea how all that works. You have to pay a deposit, and then the landlord may keep some of it or all of it. You know, if you break something, like, you know, my partner spilled coffee over her rented accommodation, or a cream sofa, and yeah, she got some of the deposit back, or none of it back. I can't quite remember. Your landlord could decide to increase your rent, yes, but then that would coincide with your mortgage increasing because interest rates rise. Improving the property could increase the price, but this only benefits the landlord. Yeah, so any decorating you do, it may look good to you, but you could also just help out your landlord massively, like an extra £10,000 massively. Is it cheaper to rent or buy? It's usually cheaper to rent in short term because the rent you pay could be lower than the mortgage repayment cost. The deposit you pay is usually much less in initial cost of buying a home. Well, yeah, if any landlords want like a £10,000 deposit or £18,000 deposit for rent, I would avoid that at all costs. Your rent pay, yeah. It could always be lower, but then up there it said the average price of rent was £700, where my last house I was paying £350 a month for a mortgage. So you can do the calculations there. And that's what it's saying there. How do I decide if we're rent or buy? If you should rent or buy, if buy depends on your financial and personal circumstances. Ask yourself these questions to help make up your mind.
Here's going to be the voice of wisdom. You need a deposit to save. You need to save a deposit to get most mortgages, which is the amount you pay towards your purchase yourself. It is shown as the percentage of the property's value and usually needs to be at least 5%. It is not anymore, it is 10% at least, I think. This would come into £10,000 on a home worth £200,000. You can get mortgages that need no deposit, but usually need a family member to agree to cover the payments you miss. If you still cannot afford a deposit, here's how to save up for one.
Good old voice of wisdom there. Do you have not? Oh, I think you can click on this. How to save up for. Let's go through this quickly. I know I'm dragging this video on. How deposit works. How to put together a deposit. You can build up your savings by using your existing savings, saving money each month, borrowing from your family and friends. Alright, cool. Using money to given you as a gift or inheritance. I mean, I would not be asking my friends for money. I'm my friends in that, but don't borrow money from friends. You control your finances, maximum you can save each month. Yeah, that's true. Write a simple, realistic budget. Cut back on your spending. Spending less on rent. Should use bank loan for your deposit. Probably not. Mainly because of that reason there. But you know, we move. you have enough money to upfront costs? Do you have enough to afford a mortgage? How long will you stay in your next home? Because it's true. If you're planning on just moving down out in a year, you know, there's no point in buying a house. You may as well rent for a year and then move. But if you like the area, you may as well buy it if you can afford to. And you can check out these government schemes that I never done, but right to buy scheme help, and there's also a lift scheme, I believe, and they also help. But then you also, when you sell the house, you give back. You're basically what they invested, so maybe a wee bit of profit. Cool. So I think that is a kind of a very good overview of what the kind of purchases are for the house. And I'm gonna switch it back to the other one. There's a good and bad things for them all, I guess, and it's yet again up to your personal circumstances. And you know, I did buy my house first time, and maybe I admit, then again, I walked around this house 3 times. I didn't notice the problems I see now. Yeah, and that's true with anything. You know, you're always going to notice the good things first, then the shit things next. But I mean, this house is fantastic. I'm really happy with it. But yeah, this is just kind of an insight into buying and renting, what you may have to consider doing, the risks. You know, as I said, your landlord may increase your rent or want new tenants in. You know, that's a risk that you need to take. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. You can check out my merch store, 40XD One Store, pick up that sick hoodie or the t-shirt. Relatively cheap as well, imported from America and everything like that. Yeah, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video, and peace.